Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 10th of June, now it's 20 to 11 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments that you may find interesting, but first of all, let me wish you a great weekend. Today is Saturday, so I will try to make this update as short as possible. And first news that I will share with you is about Ukrainian missile strike in direction of shelter, temporary shelter, where civilians from Kherson region were allocated for time being. Before Kherson region, many areas of Kherson region are flooded, and unfortunately Zelensky's regime did target this shelter in early hours of the morning. And as you can see on this picture here, or I did share on my Telegram page, also video footage, almost entire building is under fire, and you clearly can see there is no military installation anywhere here. But still, Zelensky's regime targeted this area, and as a result, one civilian was killed, several civilians were wounded, which is tragic, of course. But yet again, this kind of information does highlight once again what kind of people are running Ukraine right now, with active support of Western elites. Next information is about Crimea. We have TASS news agency's report, which is based on statements from head of this region, Sergei Aksyonov, who said that in early hours of the morning, Ukrainian armed forces launched two ballistic missiles in the direction of Peninsula, and fortunately, Russian air defense systems did manage to shut down both missiles, and there is no reports on the ground about casualties or any significant destruction. Next topic is of course about this Ukrainian offensive or counteroffensive operations that are taking place almost a week now in direction of Azov Sea in Zaporozhye Frontline. And yesterday, President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, was asked about this Ukrainian offensive, and he basically confirmed that yes, long anticipated by many Ukrainian offensive has begun. And Putin said that clear indicator that the offensive has begun is that Ukrainian armed forces are using their strategic reserves. And Putin also noted that despite all the attempts of Zelensky's regime, Ukrainian armed forces did not achieve any goals in any direction on the front, which is absolutely true. And even pro-Ukrainian maps are forced to acknowledge that Zelensky's regime did not have any success in any directions on this Zaporozhye frontline, where these Ukrainian offensive operations are taking place. In the beginning, on the first stage, you all probably well know that in the first stage, Ukrainian armed forces did attack from Ugledar direction. They were trying to establish control over this bridgehead here that are under Russian control between Ugledar and Gulyai-Pole. But despite initial success, when Ukrainian forces did establish control over the few settlements, few villages, Russian side did counterattack almost straight away and re-establish control over all the areas that was under Russian control before this Ukrainian counteroffensive began. Then general staff of Ukrainian army shifted its attention in Orekhovo direction, and in previous few days we did see heavy clashes in Orekhovo direction. And by the way, I did share on my Telegram page video and photo material on results of these clashes. Ukrainian side lost unimaginable amount of military equipment and manpower. There are different accounts. Some accounts are reporting, some sources are reporting that during these clashes for 1 week, for this previous few days, Zelensky's regime lost about 8,000 soldiers KIA and twice more wounded, and about 500 pieces of military equipment. And there are reports, more conservative reports with the conservative estimates, according to which Zelensky's regime lost about 4,000 to 5,000 soldiers KIA just in these 5-6 days of active clashes on the Zaporozhye front line, and more than 300 military equipment, including armored personnel carriers and main battle tanks, among them Western-made battle tanks and armored personnel carriers. And probably you did see on my Telegram page and on many other sources these video footage of destruction of Ukrainian columns. I did share many photo and video evidence of that. Here on these two frames you can see clearly destroyed Leopard 2A6 main battle tank, for example, here, and M2A2, if I'm not mistaken, Bradley armored personnel carrier here. But there are plenty more video footage. For example, here you can see movement. Russian side did spotted movement of Ukrainian columns and then open fire. And just look at this, man. Just look at this. Bradleys, destroyed Bradleys, one more destroyed M2 Leopard 2 A6 main battle tank, more Bradleys, recovery equipment here. So it was massacre, basically. It was massacre of Ukrainian military equipment in Orekhovo direction, and to be honest, me personally, and I guess many more in Russia, are now feel sorry for these poor Ukrainian soldiers that were forcefully mobilized and sent to this meat grinder without any chance to achieve any success. And I do understand it's conflict, and right now these Ukrainian units are acting as our enemies, and we are all in support of Russian army, and we are happy when Russian army is achieving success. That's obvious, but same time we all understand that these Ukrainian soldiers, majority of them, were forcefully mobilized and sent to the front line, and I hope they will find courage in themselves to put up white flag and surrender and save their lives, because it's not worth it to die for Zelensky and his criminal associates and for geopolitical interests of Western elites. There is reports that some units are not refusing to obey orders, but it's not enough. I hope there will be some officers in those brigades that are Ukrainian brigades that are participating in these offensive operations that will find courage to save lives of their soldiers and surrender or take arms against this criminal regime in Kiev. Because at this stage, man, probably all of you will agree with me, you all see these videos from the front line. It clearly looks like massacre, despite all this propaganda that Western elites or NATO member states will train these Ukrainian brigades, and they did deliver so many weapons and ammunition and the rest of the crap. I was always, wondering how NATO member states can train Ukrainian soldiers to conduct offensive operations or to conduct more or less successful operations when these armies of NATO member states don't have any experience, any combat experience at all. Exception can be United States, but yet again, just look military operations that the US Army were conducting. It's you cannot compare, for example, experience of US or NATO soldiers that they had in Afghanistan. You cannot compare this with current conflict, current battles in Ukraine. It's very different stories, and that's why I was thinking how these German or British or Italian soldiers or officers can train Ukrainian soldiers when they are on their own are not qualified to do so. And probably some Ukrainian soldiers had much more experience in battle than this Western military personnel that was supposed to train them. And right now we clearly see that there was a extremely high level of expectations about this Ukrainian counteroffensive. They were, because of the propaganda mainly. Many probably did think that these Ukrainian brigades are now super combat ready, but in reality, we do see on the front line that they are no match for Russian forces. And when Russian forces stand their ground and fight, they can defeat not just a Ukrainian army, they can defeat any army in this world. It's clear, and you can check my previous videos, I was saying from the very beginning that once Ukrainian brigades will run out of steam, then it will be Russian side, and Russian armed forces will decimate these Ukrainian units that are participating in these offensive operations, and we clearly see exactly that, isn't it? Even though Zelensky's regime still has some significant reserves, some 10, maybe 15 brigades left in strategic reserve, they already lost 2 or 3 brigades. If you count losses in manpower, KIA and wounded, and losses in military equipment. Zelensky's regime in just a week of activity on the front line lost about 3 brigades. And very same will happen with other brigades if they will be sent on the front line. So I truly hope we will see some significant change in behavior of Ukrainian officers and Ukrainian military as a whole, and I hope they will save their lives and surrender. That will be best decision of their lives. And by the way, RIA Novosti is also reporting about situation on the front line during the previous night. After heavy artillery duel between the sides, Zelensky's regime once again sent on offensive additional reserves, and it seems like Russian side is so confident that on previous night, according to some reports, Russian forces did not even use frontline aviation, helicopter gunships, for example, that did in previous days destroy vast amount of Ukrainian military equipment. And according to reports that we are getting from the front line, Russian side did manage to stop offensive movements of Ukrainian forces once again. And after heavy losses, these Ukrainian units forced to retreat on positions that they were holding before this offensive. So situation on the front line is exactly as I was predicting. And yes, I hope they will put up white flag, man, because I don't see reasoning why they should continue this suicidal offensive operations. For what reason, man? For Zelensky and his criminal associates? Why they gonna die? For geopolitical interests of Western elites? What is the point in all of this, man? So let me continue, and this is TASS News Agency's report, by the way, according to which even Western media outlets like Bloomberg and Washington Post and many others are now acknowledging that this first stage of Ukrainian so-called counteroffensive did not work as was expected, at least in the West. And they are acknowledging that Ukrainian side did had significant losses in manpower and military equipment. Of course, they are forced to acknowledge this because entire world did see this video footage of tens and tens of destroyed Ukrainian tanks and armored personnel carriers and other equipment. So at this point, it don't really matter what Western propaganda outlets would acknowledge or not, but if they are not acknowledging this, then they will lose even this last remaining influence that they have on the society that they had. So let me continue, and by the way, as I said, Zelensky's regime still has quite significant reserves left. About 50,000-60,000 military personnel, and at this stage, which is 10-15 brigades, we can say. And I guess Washington and London will demand from Zelensky's regime to continue these offensive operations, because you know my take on entire this situation. I think Western elites basically now want to get rid of Ukrainian armed forces. They won't get rid of Ukraine as a state. Because this failed state did play its role. Western elites did manage to put on militarization entire NATO member states, almost all of them. And now, I guess, main goal for Washington and London is that to take out Ukrainian army with the hands of Russian armed forces. So that's why they will demand continuation of these offensive operations, so that when Western neighbors of Ukraine will try to establish control of the western regions of this country, they will receive minimal opposition from Ukrainian armed forces or Ukrainian government, because there will be no Ukrainian government no more, probably. And at this stage, only question remains what will happen with Kiev and surrounding areas, because it's obvious that western regions will become under control of western neighbors of Ukraine, Hungary, Poland, Romania, maybe Slovakia, and south and eastern parts of Ukraine will be under control of Russian Federation. But question is remaining: what will happen with Kiev and surrounding areas? Will West try to establish some new state under the name of Ukraine, landlocked state in central part of Ukraine, or will Russia refuse this kind of development and will take control over the Kiev and entire central Ukraine also? But that's a question that still remains, to me at least, because we don't really have enough information for now to make some informed predictions. But I'm absolutely sure that entire southeast from Kharkiv to Odessa region will be under full Russian control, and 100% sure that western regions of Ukraine will be under control of western neighbors of Ukraine. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, according to which yesterday afternoon Putin had a meeting with informal talk with President of Belarus, Lukashenko, and they did discuss many topics, among them nuclear weapons and delivery of nuclear weapons from Russian side in Belarus, redeployment or deployment of tactical nuclear weapons on Belarus. And Putin did said that for 7 to 8 June next month, Russian side and Belarusian side will be ready and will be ready for 100%, and these areas that will hold nuclear weapons will be ready, and from 7 to 8 of June we will see probably deployment of Russian tactical nukes in Belarus. To be honest about this topic, they are quite contradicting informations time to time, because some time ago we already had information that Russia start delivering or deploying nuclear weapons in Belarus, but yesterday, as you can see, we had yet again report that Russia will start deploying its tactical nukes next month, in the first half of the next month. So it's hard to tell what the hell is happening. Maybe Russian tactical nukes already are in Belarus. I don't know. But this is anyway, this development is clear message for, especially for Poland, to stay away from Belarus and stay away from Kaliningrad autonomous region of Russian Federation, which is here, by the way. This is Kaliningrad region, which is bordering Lithuania and Poland, and that's Belarus, and Poland is bordering both. And there were some reports that Poland may act, hawkishly or aggressively in direction of Belarus and Russian Kaliningrad, and that's why I guess Moscow did make decision to deploy tactical nukes in Belarus, because that's you cannot give anybody more clear warning than this, isn't it? So let me continue now, and we have a statement from IAEA, International Atomic Energy, which did make statement that they will study Russian claims that Zelensky's regime did conduct yet again drone strikes on Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Well, by the way, we all know that IAEA is a tool of Western elites. They are 100% controlled by Washington and London, and they will, of course, will not conduct any investigation. No, because they never even once said that it's Zelensky's regime that's shelling Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Never even once said this obvious stuff that it's Ukrainian forces that are shelling Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. So what kind of investigation they're gonna conduct, man? Come on. Unfortunately, almost all international, so-called international organizations that are based in the West have become tools of Western elites, and they cannot be trusted. Unfortunately, that's quite unfortunate development, but that's true. And this is also interesting news. Russian media time to time still writes about Nord Stream pipelines, and especially when Western elites, especially in Washington, are coming up with some other new ideas how to distance Washington itself from this act of international terrorism that took place during destruction of Nord Stream pipelines, and in which Washington was directly involved. And now we have information here that, which is based on statement, article on Wall Street Journal, by the way, which is also propaganda tool of Western elites. So according to article in Wall Street Journal, Germany Germany's security services are now studying Polish involvement in these attacks on Nord Stream pipelines. So as you can see, Germany clearly acting as a colony of United States and United Kingdom, and their current German government does everything and even more to somehow clear name of Washington, to somehow distance Washington from this act of international terrorism. But what I don't understand, why they are doing this? Do they really think, I mean, these idiots in White House in the US, or idiots in German government or in government of UK, for example, do they really think that anybody in this world will believe that Washington has nothing to do with this act of international terrorism? I mean, as I said many times before, Seymour Hersh, this award-winning journalist from US, has much more integrity and much more respect all around the world that entire Western elites combined. So if Seymour Hersh said it was White House that directly was involved in, and the US Secret Services and Pentagon that was directly involved in this act of international terrorism, then that's how it was. And now, no matter how much time and efforts Western elites gonna spend to divert attention from Washington towards, I don't know, Ukraine, Poland, or any other state, it will not work. Washington cannot rebuild its reputation like that. It just cannot. So that's why I find this kind of stories, and you probably you did notice, we almost on weekly basis now have new stories about Nord Stream pipeline. One day Washington or US controlled propaganda outlets may come up with the idea that it was I don't know, aliens, because nothing is left. Now they can blame aliens if they want to. It's just I mean, it is truly sad to see a level of degradation of Western media and Western elites, really. It's just sad to see all this stuff is happening. Let me continue now, and this is quite significant development also, because countries in Latin America, one by one, are choosing to establish greater ties, greater relationships with China, and even those countries that previously had recognized Taiwan as Taiwan's government, as a government of China. As you know, Taiwan is a Chinese republic. Official name of Taiwan is a Chinese republic, and the government of Taiwan pretends that they are government of whole China. Some countries, including in Latin America, did recognize Taiwan as a legitimate Chinese government, when rest of the world, of course, majority of the world, did recognize Beijing, government in Beijing, and Chinese Communist Party as a legit government of China. And now we are seeing kind of trend when these countries that previously did recognize Taiwanese government as a government of China, are cutting ties with Taiwan and establishing greater relationships with the mainland China. And latest country that is going in this direction is Honduras in Latin America, and right now president of Honduras is in China. Xiomara Castro, that's president of Honduras, so she's visiting China, and we have this is artist's report, by the way, and we do have statements from her, and she's hoping that relationships between the countries will, will greatly develop, and I'm quite sure this will happen, of course. So this information is important because to highlight growth of influence of China and with China BRICS nations, because China is one of the main, not one of them, but basically main economical power in BRICS. Of course, we all do understand this, and if China's influence is growing, then BRICS influence is also growing, which is good for development of multipolar world, which is supposed to be much more safe and secure for humanity. I hope so. At least it's gonna be better than domination of the Western elites. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report about decisions that was made in Iceland, this small island nation on the northern part of Europe. And according to this information, government of Iceland did make decision to shut down its embassy in Moscow. They are not cutting diplomatic ties with Russia, but they are shutting down the embassy in Moscow, and they did ask Russian side to minimize its diplomatic representation or presence in Iceland, in Reykjavik. That's capital of this country. And well, why? Question is rising: why Iceland? Just why, for God's sake, man? Maybe they want some attention. Maybe Iceland's government wants some attention, and they will definitely receive attention for a day or two if they will continue act this way. But why, for God's sake, man? That's I don't know. I mean, I cannot understand truly, man, what these Western elites are doing. And this is RIA Novosti's report about Trump. By the way, as you know, Biden's White House, and these neoliberal criminals, the so-called Democrat Party, are continuing to pressure Trump to somehow make sure that he will not run for president, because seems like they truly scared that Trump will win if he will run. And now they come up with some additional allegations. This time these allegations are criminal allegations, and I would not be surprised if Trump will be arrested, really, because we all understand this is a political prosecution of a political opponent that's happening in US, well, because it's so clear, we can expect anything at this stage, and maybe they will try to arrest Trump. And by the way, what I do afraid is that if situation will deteriorate in this direction, and if Trump will truly be arrested, or if these neoliberal criminals will try to block Trump's presidential ambitions, I'm afraid we may see some serious divisions inside the US itself. Because, as you know, US society is the most armed, weaponized society in this world. And, well, let's hope we will not see some internal conflict in US, and any elements of civil war, because it will be devastating not just for US itself but for entire world. But now I am beginning to worry about this kind of development, because these neoliberal criminals, they are dangerous not just for US citizens but for all of us, for God's sake. And now they are openly trying to prosecute main political opponent, which is kind of well, you may expect this kind of stuff in some undeveloped, very much undeveloped country, but US now acting this way, well, that's kind of surprising. And let's hope situation will stay stable there, because as I said, man, US is a too important country for entire world. And you know, if any internal conflict will begin there, it will damage not just US, but it will damage entire world. That's for sure. And a few more news. Russian Central Bank, head of Russian Central Bank, Elvira Nabiulina, did made some statements about Russian economy, and she did said that in next year Russian economy will fully recover next year from a slump brought on by Western sanctions. So, and Nabiulina is very conservative in her estimations always. She's probably one of the best heads of central banks in the world, one of the best specialists in this field, and she's always very conservative. And if she's saying that next year Russian economy will recover fully from this pressure that was imposed by Western elites, then, to be honest, I have no reason to not believe her. So it's great news. And she also spoke about economical business activity inside Russia, and this activity is growing significantly, which is one more indication that if not in this year, next year, Russian economy will manage to overcome majority of obstacles that was created by Western elites. And by the way, this is going to be last news for today's update, probably are indicator that Russian economy is doing well, because Adidas, well-known worldwide German sportswear and footwear brand, did make decision to return to Russian market, like many other companies did previously, and many will do in coming months. And they did make decision, according to RT, that they will reopen their shops from November 1st on autumn, and they will start interviewing staff for their shops in beginning of the autumn. So yes, Adidas wants to come back to Russian market. I guess they will try to do it not directly, but through third parties. That's the usual stuff. Lately, companies, Western companies are trying to remain on Russian market through third parties. And probably Adidas will do the same, and it's quite understandable, because just in third quarter of 2022, Adidas lost $110 million by losing Russian market. So of course, and this year they probably lost already a few $100 million. And they will lose additional few $100 million before end of this year. And this is happening with all the companies that was presented in Russia. So yes, one way or another, they are trying now to somehow come back on Russian market. It's quite understandable, really, because after all, it's a business. That's what business does. They are trying to gain some positions on markets and reach new markets. And all these Western companies basically was forced to leave Russia. And now they are looking for ways to come back. And, well, let them do so, if it was up to me, I will demand a huge investment in Russia before I will let them come back. I will demand them multi-billion investments from big companies like Adidas. And then I will allow them to operate in Russia. Otherwise, I will just tell them, just, stay away. We don't need you, really. And maybe Russian government will do this kind of stuff, and maybe all these companies, big companies that left Russia, will invest heavily in Russian economy to receive permission to operate here. It seems logical to me. So yes, this is it. This is it for now. Oh, by the way, still too long video. But anyway, I hope you will find this update interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. That will probably greatly help me to reach wider audience. And if you think this channel is interesting, informative, useful, and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, where I am on regular basis making some extra videos. You will see links under this update in the description box. So that's been said, once again, I wish you a great weekend and take care. See you soon.